Hey guys, if your boss ever told you to do something you didn't want to do, you're going to love this episode because that's exactly what happened to our guest who actually then made $70,000 on his very first wholesale deal.
Yeah, I was really struck by the whole story of being told to comply with a certain command and him not feeling nervous. It was basically like, well, you do what you have to do. I'm confident. I'm good because I've got this wholesaling gig that's taking care of my family and taking care of my income.
Yeah, he actually overlapped for 2 years, had a
Yeah.
big stable wholesaling income before he eventually quit, which I think is smart. And if you guys haven't tuned in before, this is the podcast replacing your W 2 with wholesaling real estate. So my name is David Lecko. I've helped people close their first wholesale deal 10,000 times in all 50 states with the software platform DealMachine.
And my name is Ryan Haywood. I've been wholesaling since 2019. We've closed over 450 deals in that time. And I too was in a predicament where I needed to leave my 9 to 5, and I was able to do it thanks to wholesaling.
So Travis, how much did you make on your first wholesale deal?
My first wholesale deal, we netted 70K. I did JV that with a buddy of mine, so I netted myself 35K and him 35K.
What? How did you do that on your first deal?
Yeah, it's a very interesting deal. So I got into wholesaling just from I bought a course online, and one of the leads I got happened to be a house with some storage units behind it. It was a converted car wash that they turned into a storage area. And then they built some other storage area on there. So initially, I had no idea how to run this, right? I was new to wholesaling. I only know how to analyze single family homes, right? It's not something I've ever seen or knew how to run numbers on a storage unit. So I reached out to a buddy of mine who happened to be Austin Rutherford and was kind of my mentor getting started. And I was like, hey, should I just throw an offer out to these guys? I almost just let it pass through my CRM because I had no idea what to do with it. He's like, yeah, I mean, it's worth a shot. So I threw an offer out at, I believe, 300. And that included the house at the front, which was on Section 8, and all of the units behind it. So the storage unit and the house. So we locked that up for 300. And I noticed there was another vacant house that sat in front of the storage units as well, who was owned by the next door neighbor. So ended up locking that up for 30K, and we wholesaled the whole package for 400,000.
Wow. How did you have so much confidence to do this deal as having no experience before?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of confidence going into it. I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm new to this. Um, these guys don't necessarily know if I've been in this business a long time. They were just liquidating their property, so they were just looking to get rid of it. So, I took the tools that I had from like the coursework in the short amount of time and just, putting those things into action. Um, but yeah, I mean, at that time, I wouldn't say I probably did have a lot of confidence. It was like I have nothing else to lose, right? Worst thing they can do is say no. And it ended up working out, and um, maybe I gained a little confidence in locking up that deal to go search for the other people and the other owners of that other house. But yeah, man, it worked out for everybody. And funny enough, not really funny, but the people who bought it from me actually got foreclosed on. And Austin, who had helped me acquire that deal, now owns that whole area of storage units and stuff. So it came full circle.
Wow. And who thought you could actually convert a car wash to a storage facility? I kind of want to see that.
Yeah, man, it was probably 6 car wash bays probably at one time. They built an office space on top of it, so that's where they operated the business out of. Super unique property, and then they had like some storage lockers. But they did build some, larger semi truck storage and stuff on there as well. So they definitely built it up, but the car wash stuff was pretty cool to see.
All right. How long ago was this first deal?
Goodness, that would have been. We contracted it in the fall of 2020, and I believe it closed right in January of 2021.
Got it. So you've been doing this just 4 years.
Yeah, man, I got started during COVID. I worked in the healthcare industry, and I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. And there's something else out there for me. So I enjoyed what I did, but when COVID came around, it became pretty tough. So I started searching for other things.
What was it about the healthcare industry that you didn't like?
Uh, my job is, I managed several different hospitals here in Columbus. And anytime anybody would come in to check in for surgeries, or, the first face you see when you'd walk into a hospital was my team. So customer experience, that's what we really Um, that was my job. And when COVID came around, it was really just, handing out masks, asking questions, taking temperatures. It's not something I really enjoyed anymore. And, you know, politics aside, it's not necessarily something that I, you know, was aligned with them anymore. So it was just like, you know what, maybe there's something else out there for me. I don't really enjoy this. It's not something I feel too passionately about anymore. So,
And then whenever you jumped over to wholesaling, did you
yep.
meet that seller in person since it was during COVID?
Yeah, I did. I went to their office that they had on top of the car washes, met them there. It was like four brothers, elderly gentlemen. I think there's only one or two of them that were there just for that reason. They didn't want the other brothers who, were more susceptible to be getting sick there. But yeah, I mean, they not that they were deniers, but they weren't too worried about COVID at that time. Let's say that.
Why do you think they were liquidating all their properties?
They were just old, and they were getting to a point where they all just wanted to retire. They had a very nice portfolio of things, and they were just liquidating. So they had sold most of their stuff prior to this. This was kind of that last one, so they had made a hefty amount of money, and they were just looking to be done with everything at that point.
Did they list any of it on the MLS?
I think they sold a lot of it off market. I didn't see any of their other stuff just because this was the last one or two properties they had. So I do believe they sold it all off market, though.
Okay. Do you know why they would do that instead of listing it with an agent?
You know what? I mean, just for ease, find somebody to buy kind of everything at once. I think that's what they were looking to do. They might not have, they had enough equity and almost all their properties were paid off, right? So what they paid probably 40, 50 years ago for these properties in Columbus is probably pennies, and equity now is just through the roof. So um, selling for top dollar might not have been their biggest priority. It was just, let's just get this done quickly, as easily as possible, um, and take them all out at once. So.
Well, and most of the people we talk to wholesale single family homes, which you comp by looking at other homes that have sold that are similar size and quality. I was curious, how'd you comp a car wash that's turned into a storage facility?
We just looked at it on what their revenue numbers were for rent. So obviously, we looked at. I think they had everything rented at that time. How much revenue was it bringing in? Um, and as long as that covered, what a new mortgage would be, that's kind of how we analyzed that. There wasn't. I didn't really have any kind of commercial calculator, or how to calculate a bunch of things for commercial stuff. So really, we just threw a number out there and tried to get a number out of them to see what would stick. Uh, and thankfully it worked. But I wouldn't say we really knew, or I really knew how to analyze that deal myself either. It was just, let's see if we can make this work.
What did you end up doing with the $35,000 that you walked away with? I thought it was smart that it seems like you partnered with somebody who helped you hook
Yep.
up the buyer, right?
Yeah, so he knew somebody who would buy it immediately. So I was like, yeah, cool, bring me the buyer. It was a super unique property, so it's going to take, that unique person to buy something like this who has a specific need. The other guys were contractors, so they could put their material and stuff there and do a lot of that. And it was pretty central Columbus, so central to all their projects. They wouldn't have to travel a long way to get material and stuff like that. Um, but to answer the question, the 35K. So when I first started, I probably started in like August, September. So I did have some business credit cards that I, used for marketing. So cold calling, starting the business, did the 0% credit card thing for 12 years. So we paid all that debt off, and then I did put that into more marketing. So we hired some VAs and some cold callers and stuff like that to keep marketing going and increase our lead flow.
And how did you meet that guy you ended up partnering with?
Goodness, how did I meet Bernie? I think it's just the younger investor group here in Columbus is pretty tight knit. So we all know each other. We're all competitors, but we're all really good friends, and we all sell each other deals and see each other on walkthroughs. So I think he was just like a mutual acquaintance. Um, so I can't remember exactly where I met Bernie, but he's a good dude, and I knew I could trust him.
Have you ever had a weekend at Bernie's?
I have not had a weekend at Bernie's. He does live right down the road from me now, though, so not too
Cool.
far.
Yeah, just had to ask. It's a great movie. So I was curious when you talked about getting business credit cards. Like, what made you didn't have an existing business before that? So how'd you get a business credit card for a business that didn't really exist yet?
Yeah, I had opened up an LLC maybe a few months prior. So that LLC had aged a little bit, and I had a buddy, who at that time credit card points and hacks were all a good thing. He's like, "Hey, just go apply for this card and this card." And, we didn't have a huge credit limit being a new business, but it was through Chase, I believe, the Chase Inc. cards, and they were generous enough to lend me some money. They still pull personal credit score and stuff like that, even though it's a business. It won't report to your personal, but they still pull your personal credit. And I've always had pretty good credit, so I'd imagine that helped as well.
Awesome. So what did you do after this home run deal?
I didn't do really much of anything, I knew like I just had to keep going. We paid off those bills, and there were more deals to come. You can't we might have enjoyed dinner or something. I can't remember exactly, but we just put it right back into the business and continued marketing and growing that team and getting more leads. So just kept grinding, really.
Right. It sounded like Ryan had a question.
Yeah, I want to go back. Like, we're talking about when you were in COVID and you're leaving and you felt like there was something else out there. Like, were you a little bit nervous that you may have to go back to work if this doesn't pan out?
No, honestly. So I still worked my healthcare job for 2 years and did this wholesaling stuff on the side.
Oh, okay.
So I was still building my business while working there. Thankfully, I had a pretty flexible job that allowed me to do that, and a really good team there. So they were able to really run on their own, and I could go home and call my leads after at the end of the day and do all that. So, um, it was came down to get this vaccine or get fired, and this was my like, hey, fire me, so I have to go do this, right? Like, not that I really cared. It's like, I need to go do this on my own. I need you to go ahead and fire me. And, they asked me, it's like, well, what's this going to look like on your resume? If you have this gap and you decide to come back. And I blatantly told them, I was like, I won't need a resume ever again. I will never come back to a W-2 job. So, I took that bet on myself, and it's paid off so far.
That's honestly pretty intense. Like, to be able to be told like do this or that, but to also have the confidence of like, well, you do what you need to do because I'm good.
Yep.
That's
Yeah. And
crazy.
yeah, and I was a young early 20s or late 20s at that time. I was like, look, I don't need this vaccination. Do what you got to do. I know I could submit these questions and lie for a reason to stay here, but I was like, look, one of our core values is integrity at this company, and I don't think that would be good integrity on my part to go ahead and lie on this. So go ahead and just fire me. I'm totally fine with that, totally at peace with it. So they understood.
Dude, do you have kids? Do you have a wife? Was there
I
some other
do.
thing? How
Yeah,
was
I
your
have an
wife feeling about
11-year-old
this?
son. Yeah, and I have an 11-year-old son. Um, so that was scary. And then, I did have an acquisitions person who worked with me, during that time. So, you know, it's I managed 40 people at a hospital, right? But I was never paying them, right? It was the healthcare system. So the scariest part was like, okay, now I'm responsible for paying people and, helping them, feed their families and do those things. So that was the scariest part for me. I was more worried about that than really myself.
When I left my W-2 job, one of the things on like in the office giving my resignation, one of the things that the guy told me is like, well, you're going to regret this because you need health insurance. Was that something that you worried about too? Or, I mean, you being a healthcare professional, you probably had a little bit more confidence than I would in that. I was scared to death. So,
Yeah, I didn't worry about that, honestly. Now, my mother, that was her
yeah.
biggest thing. It's like, what are you going to do about health insurance? I'm like, look, I make decent money at the hospital, but I'm like, look, I can make this amount of money that I make at this hospital a year in 1 or 2 months, right? That's that health insurance. I can get private health insurance, which I pay maybe $300 a month for now.
Hmm.
and that's going to be a drop in the hat. Like it's a non-issue. I know that's many people struggle with that, but there are definitely
It
options
is.
out there. It's you're really not paying that much more than what you're paying your work provider to pay
Right.
insurance for you.
But
So
that's one
there's
of the
plenty of
things that
options.
the W-2 environment tries to anchor you for life in, is like, well,
Yep.
what are you going to do about benefits? What are you going to do about retirement? What are you going to do about insurance? And they kind of just trap you in that,
Yeah.
oh, you're right. I can't do this. So,
Yeah. No, I didn't worry about that, and I knew that would be the first thing my family would say. And sometimes you got to take that leap and figure that out later, right?
yeah,
I'm young. I'm a healthy guy, so if I had a bunch of health issues, maybe a different story. But
sure.
that didn't concern me at that point.
Travis, what's your average assignment fee size now?
So we in Columbus this year, I'm probably around 25 to 30. We do some other tertiary markets like Dayton, Ohio. Those are a little bit smaller. We average about 11,000 there, and most of the tertiary areas. So we still flip a lot too. Our profits are really good. So um, the wholesale side, we just kind of wholesale stuff we don't want. We still hold rentals as well. So, keep the best, wholesale the rest is kind of our motto for like many people now. But I'd say Columbus, we're probably near 30. We've had some really awesome direct mail leads come in that have just been awesome, awesome wholesale deals for us. And then the other tertiary markets where we mostly wholesale and don't flip a lot, we probably average 10 or 11K on those.
That's pretty good. How do you sell your deals now? Are you still partnering with that guy?
No, that was a one and done thing. So I have a VA who dispos all of our deals. We have had somebody in house before that disposed. And she was an agent, so she was a huge help to us too. Very good at her job. What I find in Columbus is people will pay insane prices for deals in Columbus that I personally would never buy, or I don't think are great deals. And, somebody comes in and scoops it up. So we don't have a tough time disposing properties in Columbus. I could throw it in a Facebook group or a social media post and it'll be gone within 10 minutes. The other tertiary markets are a little bit different. Buyers, operate a little bit differently out there, more cash flow plays because they're cheaper properties. Um, so that's a little bit tougher, but we have a VA, who utilizes, I think, Investor Base. We have used Investor Lift at some point, and but really just our buyers list, email list. We do a lot of that.
Got it. So when you say you throw it in a Facebook group, do you typically run a process where it's the highest and best within a certain 24-hour period, or do you just put out a price and you accept first person offer you that price and pay a down payment?
Generally, it's if it's somebody I've worked with before and I know that I can trust them. A lot of times our buyers are repeat buyers. So in Dayton specifically, I've probably sold majority of my deals to two or three people. So I know if they give me an offer, I was like, look, guys, be straight up with me. Where are you at on this? If they give me a strong offer and it's close to where we want to be, a lot of times it's right at or even a little bit over, we'll take it. I don't walk 20 people through a property. Not something I like to do. Maybe not best business practice for my business or getting the most out of that assignment fee, but I don't want to bother people with 20 people walking through their property, potentially screwing up that deal. I generally just go back to if it's somebody I've worked with before and their offer is good, I'll take it. On the other stuff, we will have two or three people to say, hey, give me your best offer by this time.
Got it. Now, earlier you said after you did the $35,000 deal, you just kept your head down, kept working,
Yep.
and you went and did more marketing. And then you said build that team. So you didn't start with a marketing team, right? But you have now like a VA that helps with some of that.
Yeah, so initially when I first started, I had one cold caller. It was I didn't even manage them. It was some Egyptian company that I hired for $5 an hour. I just sent them data and then they called the leads and then just put them in my CRM and I did that follow up. I did have a VA who would like extract that data for me, do some data entry stuff for me on the KPI side. She's still with me today. I think at that point she was making like $1.50 an hour, so it was something I can afford. But yeah, we increased marketing to more cold callers. I did up hiring like an acquisitions manager, maybe after a year in. Um, but now we're at, three full-time acquisitions managers, a transaction coordinator full-time who happens to be my mother. She does a lot of different things: property management, TC, my admin work. And then we have a VA doing dispo, two lead managers that are in Egypt. They're super awesome. And then we have some other VAs that do some other data stuff for us as well.
Okay, gotcha. So where do you want to take the business from here?
From here, I mean, we're just scaling this year, closing in on 100 deals for this year. Still playing with markets. We've tried out the Akron market, done some deals there, but the headaches aren't really worth what the profit it brings in. So playing around with some tertiary markets. Dayton still does very well for us. We have some awesome flips going there. Our first flip in Dayton, we made 105K on, so we were super excited about that. But really just seeing what else we can, expand. Do we continue Ohio? Do we look somewhere else? Those are kind of our next steps and seeing what we can do.
I love it. You're definitely moving and shaking. Are you doing it all alone or do you have a partner?
I do almost all the Columbus stuff on my own. I do have a partner in the Dayton entity, that just does some like silent partner stuff, but majority of it is on my own.
Got it. Well, congratulations on all your success. Is there a place on social media where people listening could find you?
Yeah, it's just Trav, TRAV_Cope, COPE.
Got it. Well, you guys heard it there. Follow Travis and get excited for the new markets that he's going to develop. And then also just congrats, dude, on it was so inspiring to hear you make $70,000 on your first deal. And that's exactly what we want to do on this podcast for somebody listening to really understand what's possible. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man. You guys have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.